What's up, everybody? It's Alan's Movie Talk, back at it again. Just got back from watching Presents, so let's talk about it. So Presents is a horror film, the newest horror film by Steven Soderbergh, that essentially revolves around a family that moves into a new home, and there is a presence in that home that is entirely the POV of the entire movie. So you don't really get the POV of any of the characters in the film. The POV just comes directly from the ghost or presence or whatever it is that is in this house. And that concept is going to be my first positive of this film. We've never seen, a horror movie like this. We've seen countless haunted house films, countless ghost stories, but we've never seen one that takes place exclusively from the perspective of the actual ghost or demon throughout the entire film. And, to me, that causes for this film to have a very unique experience in a genre of films that, if I'm being honest, it is very tiring and has not been fresh or innovative in quite some time. This film also has a lot of subtle psychological horror in it. It doesn't really rely on your typical, jump scares or violence or anything like that. And it really builds the tension in the film through atmosphere and through, events that precede the film. So I felt like that was a part of the refreshing and unique take that this film had. And also, too, the cinematography in this film, it's great. I mean, this is a beautiful looking film. It wasn't filmed in the widescreen format. It is, at least at the theater I saw it at, it was completely full screen, no bars or anything. And it really allowed for you to just take in the atmosphere of every shot. When you're following this entity throughout the entire house and with these characters, it really just allowed for beautiful visuals and for you to see, the landscape of the house, and it was very visually stunning. So I really appreciated that from this film. And then when it comes to the direction in this film, I felt like it was very well done, specifically with the camera angles. They pretty, like I said, it stays POV with the ghost throughout the entire film. And, I don't know what the setup was. I would love to see some behind the scenes stuff on this film, but the way that the camera acts as the presence throughout the entire film and goes from room to room, from character to character and conversation to conversation, I felt like was very well done, and it was very smoothly done throughout the entire film. This film also does have a lot of thoughtful themes at the core of its narrative. It really goes into, grief, dealing with loss, dealing with uncomfortable family dynamics. I felt like when it comes to the story, those themes being present, allowed for a lot more nuance with the characters and the things that they were going through, in this story. So I did really appreciate that. And then I will say that this film had a very effective ending. The ending to me, specifically like the last 15 to 20 minutes, I thought was done very well. And when you kind of figure out what is going on actually in the film, and what is this family's relations to the presence, I thought that was done very well, and was the best part of the film for me, was when we fully realized this story and where we were going with things. So it definitely, I left the theater on a positive note. So yeah, I really appreciated where this film ended. But for me, that is where my positives end with this film. The biggest complaint I have about this film is the pacing. Like I said, that concept of having a movie entirely from the POV of a ghost, of a presence, was very unique. You kind of get over it, though, in the first 15 minutes, when you've, basically just watched this ghost, go around the house, listen to their conversations of the characters, and, essentially just eavesdrop, and then nothing really happens. So for me, like I said, I loved that last 15 to 20 minutes, but I can't lie and say that this film was not a bore to get through. I mean, that first, the movie's only an hour and I think 25 minutes or so. So, I mean, for that first, hour and 5 minutes, hour and 10 minutes, I was really struggling to pay attention and to keep invested in the story and in this film. So that really just bogged it down for me. The pacing in this film was just not good. And when I started off this review, I called it a horror movie because realistically, this is not a horror movie. There is no actual horror elements to this film. A lot of the thrilling or horror aspects of this film, come from the unsettling environment, but they do that repeatedly and so many times in the film that when you don't actually get a payoff to these moments, what does it matter? I mean, what are we doing? So for me, it lacking a lot of what you expect out of a traditional horror film, made it unique, but it didn't make it enjoyable for me. I actually would have preferred if we did have, a couple more moments that were in the traditional horror sense. Because then, at least for me, there would have been more excitement in this film throughout the runtime. And then, while I did like the, initial concepts of a majority of the themes that they explored in this film, a lot of them were very underdeveloped. I mean, there were certain storylines, specifically between the mom and dad, husband and wife. There was a storyline that they had set up in this film that literally ended up going nowhere. And, maybe from a storytelling perspective, it was to, establish what was actually happening and the dynamics between this family. But if there's no actual payoff for it, or any reason as to why it was in the film, it just feels pointless, and it just feels like it goes nowhere. And again, for a movie that's only an hour and 25 minutes, that's just kind of baffling to me. And it makes me think, like, they didn't really have a story here to fill a full runtime. Because we barely got a full runtime as it is, and a lot of the storylines just ended up not going anywhere. So in that aspect, I was pretty disappointed by that. And then that story, like I said, I won't spoil what it was, but that storyline with the mom and dad was actually one of the more intriguing things, where I was like, oh, I would really like to know where that's going to go. And then we just never find out. So that was very frustrating with this film. And then this one kind of goes hand in hand with what I just talked about. There's really just not a lot of emotional engagement that you have with the characters. The daughter is kind of the family, right? The daughter is the one, who has the most emotion behind her character. And I felt like she did a good job. But again, her character and the arc that she goes through on this film just really felt underdeveloped, right? And like I said, I still think the ending does a good job in the film. I did like the ending, and I can't really go into why because I would be spoiling it. But I just felt like they could have did a better job with building towards that ending. That would have made me care about this family a lot more than I ended up actually caring about. And from an actor perspective, they all give great performances. No one really is weak, I would say, in the film, but to me, it was just the very minimalist writing that this film had. I mean, it's like I said, it's just there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't matter, or a lot of moments in the film where really nothing's happening. We're not really advancing anywhere or doing anything. And I just feel like if we just did more on the story side, this could have really been a truly great film. There was potential, but a lot of it just didn't work for me. So, and then, I don't usually like to be this guy, but the rules and everything that kind of gets explained about the presence in the film didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Again, I don't really think that mattered because I did end up enjoying at least where we ended up by the end of this film, and it was a good moment, and a good ending. But yeah, the logic of the presence of the ghost in this film, it is what it is. I mean, what can you expect in a 2025 horror film? Logic's not always going to be that sound. So that's just kind of a nitpick, at least for my last point. So yeah, I mean, overall, I didn't hate Presence. It came out the same week as Flight Risk. Much more enjoyable film than that. I probably should have went and saw that first over Flight Risk because that movie was garbage, pretty much. But I felt like, there was a lot more potential with this film that was kind of wasted. So I don't know if I would say I was more disappointed in this film than Flight Risk, but my expectation going in was a little bit higher than it was for that film. So I just feel disappointed from this film. I felt like there was a lot more they could have did. The pace was way too slow. They didn't do enough when it comes to the characters for me to really care all that much. Like I said, I felt like the artistic nature of the film, it was beautifully done. So I give it points for that. And then the ending, I did enjoy like that last 15 to 20 minutes. I thought that's where the film actually got interesting, but it was over too quick. So overall, I'm going to give Presence a 2.75 out of 5. Like I said, not terrible, but a little bit of wasted potential for me. So yeah, this is going to be the last film I'm going to see in the month of January. So I will be putting out a ranking. I've seen 6 films so far. So yeah, be on the lookout for that film. And if you haven't subscribed yet, and if you're just now watching this video and seeing my channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Check out my other videos. And everybody, have a great night.